Jake Morrison wiped the grease from his hands as he finished repairing the final life support panel in the medical bay. The orbital repair station hummed quietly around him, a familiar sound he had heard every day for the past 5 years. He was just another mechanic, nothing special, living his simple life in the depths of space. Suddenly, red alarms blared throughout the station. Jake jumped, nearly dropping his tools. The emergency lights flashed, painting everything in harsh crimson. His radio crackled to life. All personnel, emergency docking in progress. Clear medical bay immediately, Lisa Bennett, the station administrator, announced urgently. Jake grabbed his toolbox and headed for the door, but it sealed shut before he could reach it. The automatic lockdown had trapped him inside. Through the reinforced window, he saw a massive ship approaching, unlike anything human-made. Its dark metal hull was covered in scales, like some ancient beast from mythology. The Draconians had arrived. Jake's heart pounded. Everyone knew about the Draconians. They were an ancient empire, powerful and mysterious. Humans had only made contact with them a few years ago, and relations were tense at best. They kept to themselves, and humans learned quickly to respect their boundaries. The airlock hissed open. Draconian guards rushed through, their reptilian features hidden behind ceremonial helmets. They carried a figure on a hovering stretcher. Even from across the room, Jake could see she was badly injured. Her scaled skin was pale, almost gray, and strange burns covered her arms. Princess Verith requires immediate medical attention, Commander Thorne barked at the human medical staff rushing in behind Jake. The Draconian's voice was deep and commanding. Jake pressed himself against the wall, trying to stay invisible. He knew the stories. Draconians had strict rules about their royalty. Nobody could touch them. Not aliens, anyway. The penalty was death. The medical team worked frantically, setting up equipment around the princess. Jake watched through the chaos, fascinated despite his fear. She was beautiful in an alien way, with elegant features and silver scales that caught the light. Then disaster struck. A power surge, probably from the damaged royal ship interfering with station systems, caused sparks to fly from a nearby panel. The princess's stretcher destabilized, and she began sliding toward the exposed electrical conduits. The medical staff were too far away, frozen in shock. Jake didn't think. He just moved. His body reacted on pure instinct. He dove forward and caught Princess Verith before she hit the deadly exposed wires. Her weight surprised him, heavier than she looked, but he managed to steady her and pull her away from danger. For a moment, everything stopped. The Draconian guards stared at him, their eyes wide with horror behind their helmets. Commander Thorne's hand moved to his weapon. The human medical staff looked terrified. Jake realized what he had done. He had touched Draconian royalty. "No, please, I didn't mean." Jake started to say, but his voice died in his throat. Princess Veritha's eyes opened slightly. She looked at Jake, her golden eyes meeting his. Her lips moved, forming words in the Draconian language that Jake couldn't understand. Her voice was barely a whisper, weak and fading. Then her eyes closed, and she went completely still. "Seize him," Commander Thorne ordered, his voice cold as ice. 2 guards grabbed Jake roughly, yanking him away from the princess. His toolbox clattered to the floor. Lisa Bennett burst into the room, taking in the scene with growing alarm. "What happened here?" she demanded. "This human has committed the forbidden act," Commander Thorne said. "He has touched the royal blood. By our ancient law, he must face judgment." Jake's legs felt weak as the guards dragged him toward the door. He had just saved her life, hadn't he? But looking at the fury on the Draconian faces, he knew that didn't matter. He had broken their most sacred law. His simple life as a mechanic had just ended. Jake sat in his quarters, now a prison cell. A Draconian guard stood outside his door, silent and unmoving. He had been here for 6 hours, and in that time, the entire station had learned what happened. His friend Danny Foster had tried to visit 3 times, but the guards turned him away each time. The news had spread beyond the station too. Jake could hear the increased radio chatter through the walls. Ships were arriving, important people demanding answers. This wasn't just about him anymore. This was becoming something much bigger. Lisa Bennett finally got permission to see him. She looked exhausted, her eyes red from stress. "Jake, I won't lie to you. This is bad," she said, sitting across from him. "The Draconian Emperor himself is coming. Emperor Vexus. That has never happened before in human space." Jake felt his stomach drop. "I was just trying to help her. She was going to die." "I know," Lisa said softly. "Everyone knows that. But their law doesn't care about intentions. Touching royalty is forbidden. They believe it protects them from contamination, from disease. It's been their law for thousands of years." Hours passed. Admiral Grant arrived from the Human Coalition, along with Senator Patricia Cole. Jake watched through his small window as important ships docked one after another. The station had never seen so much activity. Danny finally managed to sneak a message through one of the sympathetic human guards. The note was simple but terrifying. "They're preparing an execution ceremony. Don't give up hope. We're trying everything." That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He thought about his life, about his parents back on Earth who he hadn't visited in 2 years. He thought about all the things he wanted to do but never had time for. All because he caught someone who was falling. The next morning, a draconian priest arrived. High Priest Karath, tall and ancient, with deep purple scales and eyes that seemed to look through Jake rather than at him. The priest didn't speak to Jake but began setting up strange symbols outside his door. Dr. Helen Wright came to see him, bringing food that Jake couldn't eat. She was the station's chief medical officer, smart and dedicated. "Jake, I've been running tests," Helen said quietly, glancing at the guard. "The princess's condition, it's strange." "Is she alive?" Jake asked. "Yes, barely. But here's what's interesting. After you touched her, her vital signs actually improved. Not much, but enough to notice." Jake frowned. "How is that possible?" Helen pulled out her datapad, showing him charts he didn't fully understand. "I think something transferred from you to her. Microorganisms, bacteria from your skin. I need to run more tests, but I think they might be fighting whatever infection is killing her." "You mean I might have helped her?" Jake felt a small spark of hope. "Maybe. But I need to be careful how I present this. If I tell the Draconians that their princess was saved by human bacteria, it might make things worse. It proves their fears about contamination, even if in this case it was beneficial." The station shook slightly. Through the window, Jake saw the largest ship he had ever seen emerging from faster-than-light travel. It was monstrous, covered in weapons and armor, with the royal symbol emblazoned on its hull. Emperor Vexus had arrived. The Emperor brought a fleet with him. 20 warships surrounded the station, their weapons powered but not aimed. It was a clear message. The station was at the Emperor's mercy. Jake was brought to the main conference hall, his hands bound. The room was filled with people, human and draconian alike. At the center sat Emperor Vexus, enormous and intimidating, his scales dark as night and marked with golden symbols of rank. Next to him stood a younger draconian, Prince Kelvin, the princess's brother. He watched Jake with cold eyes, a slight smile on his face. "This is the human who defiled our sacred law?" Emperor Vexus's voice boomed through the hall. "Yes, your majesty," Commander Thorne confirmed. He touched Princess Verith with his bare hands. Senator Cole stepped forward. "Your majesty, this human saved your daughter's life. Surely that must be considered." "The law is absolute," Prince Kelvin interjected. "It does not bend for circumstance. Our people have maintained this law for 5,000 years. Admiral Grant tried to negotiate, offering alternative punishments, even offering himself in Jake's place. The Emperor listened to everything but remained unmoved. Finally, Emperor Vexus raised his hand for silence. "The human will be given one chance to speak before judgment is passed. Let him explain his crime." Jake stood, his legs shaking. Every eye in the room was on him. He thought about everything he wanted to say, all the arguments and pleas. But in the end, he spoke simply. "I didn't think about your laws or politics. I just saw someone falling, someone about to get hurt. Where I come from, you help people when they're in trouble. That's all I did. I'm sorry if that was wrong in your culture, but I'm not sorry I saved her life." The room erupted in whispers. Prince Kelvin laughed mockingly. You see, the human admits his crime with pride. He is too primitive to understand honor. Emperor Vexus stared at Jake for a long moment. Then he stood, and the room fell silent. I have made my decision. This human will face the traditional punishment. Tomorrow at dawn, the sentence will be carried out. Jake felt his world crumbling. But then alarms started blaring from the medical bay. A doctor ran into the room, breathless. Your Majesty, Princess Verith is waking up. The entire assembly rushed to the medical bay, guards dragging Jake along with them. Emperor Vexus moved faster than Jake thought possible for someone so large. The Emperor's concern for his daughter was clear, all imperial composure temporarily forgotten. Inside the medical bay, Princess Verith was sitting up slowly, supported by her handmaiden Lady Cirith. The princess's color had returned, her scales now showing their proper silver sheen instead of the deathly gray from before. Dr. Helen Wright stood nearby, monitoring the vital signs with barely contained excitement. Verith, Emperor Vexus said, his voice uncharacteristically soft. He rushed to her side, taking her hand carefully. Father, the princess replied weakly. I am glad to see you. The Emperor's relief was visible, but then his expression hardened. You were dying. The poison was beyond our medicine. Yet now you wake. How? Princess Veritha's golden eyes scanned the room until they found Jake. The human. Where is he? Commander Thorne stepped forward. He is here, Your Highness, awaiting judgment for his crime. Crime? Princess Verith looked confused. What crime? He touched you, sister, Prince Kelvin said, moving closer. His voice carried an edge that Jake didn't like. He violated our most sacred law. Father has already passed judgment. He will be executed at dawn. The princess's eyes widened. No. He saved my life. I was falling toward the electrical conduits. He caught me. I remember it clearly now. The law does not account for intention, Prince Kelvin insisted. It is absolute. No alien may touch royal blood. This has been our way since the founding of our empire. An older draconian stepped forward, scales faded with age. Counselor Wraith bowed to the Emperor. Your Majesty, if I may speak? Emperor Vexus nodded, though his expression was troubled. I have been studying the ancient texts since this incident occurred, Counselor Wraith said. The original law, written 5,000 years ago, had different wording than our current version. It stated that touch was forbidden to prevent harm to the royal line. But this human prevented harm. By the original interpretation, his action may not violate the spirit of the law. Prince Kelvin scoffed. You twist old words to suit modern weakness. The law has been clear for millennia. Dr. Helen Wright cleared her throat nervously. Your Majesty, if I may present my medical findings? The Emperor gestured for her to continue. Helen activated her datapad, projecting medical charts into the air. Princess Verith was infected with a pathogen we've identified as Zerathian fever. It's deadly to draconians, and your own physicians confirmed they had no cure. High Priest Korath nodded gravely. This is true. We expected the princess to die within hours. But something changed after Jake Morrison touched her, Helen continued. His skin bacteria, completely harmless to humans, were transferred to the princess. These bacteria are natural enemies of the Zerathian pathogen. They've been fighting the infection ever since. That's why she's recovering. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Prince Kelvin's face twisted with anger. This proves our law was right. Alien contact brings contamination. But this contamination saved her life, Admiral Grant interjected. Your own medicine failed. This human's accidental intervention succeeded. Emperor Vexus looked torn, his massive hands clenched into fists. The law exists to protect us from exactly this kind of biological interference. Yet in this case, the interference was beneficial, Counselor Wraith argued. Should we not consider that the law, as currently interpreted, may need examination? Princess Verith struggled to sit up straighter, ignoring Lady Ciritha's protests. Father, I invoke the claim of life debt. The room went absolutely silent. Even Prince Kelvin looked shocked. High Priest Korath stepped forward, his ancient eyes wide. Your Highness, that law has not been invoked in over 3,000 years. But it still exists, does it not? Princess Verith challenged. The priest nodded slowly. Yes. It is written in the oldest texts. When a royal's life is saved by another, that person enters into sacred bond with the royal house. They become untouchable, protected, honored. You cannot be serious, Prince Kelvin hissed. That law is ancient history, forgotten for good reason. It is still law, Counselor Wraith said firmly. And by our traditions, older laws take precedence when they conflict with newer ones. Emperor Vexus looked at his daughter, then at Jake, then at the assembled crowd. The weight of the decision was clear on his face. Uphold the law everyone knew, or acknowledge an ancient law that contradicted it. Danny Foster, who had somehow snuck into the back of the room, whispered to Lisa Bennett, "Is this really happening? Is Jake going to be okay?" Lisa shook her head. "I don't know. This is unprecedented." Prince Kelvin stepped forward, his voice rising. "Father, you cannot let this stand. Our people will see it as weakness. We have maintained our laws, our traditions, our separation from other species for thousands of years. If you bend now, everything we are will be questioned." "Perhaps it should be," Princess Verith said quietly, but her voice carried through the silent room. "We have isolated ourselves for so long. We trust no one, touch no one, share nothing with other species. And what has it brought us? I was dying from a disease we could not cure. A simple human mechanic, acting on instinct, saved me when all our advanced medicine failed." Emperor Vexus closed his eyes, deep in thought. The tension in the room was unbearable. Jake's heart pounded so hard he thought everyone could hear it. Finally, the Emperor opened his eyes and spoke. "I cannot make this decision alone," Emperor Vexus said slowly. "This matter touches the very foundation of our society. I am sending for Elder Vornis from the homeworld. He is the oldest living scholar of our ancient laws. He will examine the texts and provide guidance." Prince Kelvin's face showed barely controlled rage, but he bowed. "As you command, Father." "Until Elder Vornis arrives, the human will remain in custody, but he will not be harmed," the Emperor continued. "My daughter will continue to recover under the care of both our physicians and the humans." Jake was led back to his quarters, but this time the atmosphere felt different. The draconian guards were less hostile, more uncertain. He had gone from condemned criminal to something undefined, hanging in a strange legal limbo. Danny was allowed to visit him now. His friend brought food and news from around the station. "You should see it out there, Jake," Danny said, shaking his head in amazement. "Half the Draconians are arguing in their ships, the other half are studying old books. The humans don't know what to think. Some are calling you a hero, others think you're the luckiest idiot alive." "What do you think?" Jake asked. Danny grinned. "I think you're both." 3 days passed. Ships continued to arrive, including an ancient vessel from the Draconian homeworld. Elder Vornis emerged, so old his scales had faded to almost white. He walked slowly, supported by attendants, but his eyes were sharp and clear. The Elder spent 2 days locked in a room with ancient texts, holographic displays showing symbols Jake couldn't read. High Priest Korath and Counselor Wraith joined him, along with other Draconian scholars. The debates that filtered out were heated but respectful. Meanwhile, Princess Verith continued to recover. Dr. Helen worked closely with Draconian physicians, sharing knowledge. The princess requested to meet with Jake, but Prince Kelvin blocked it, claiming it would be inappropriate until the legal matter was resolved. Senator Cole and Admiral Grant worked on contingency plans. If the ruling went badly, they needed to extract Jake and prepare for potential conflict. The human coalition was mobilizing ships, just in case. On the 6th day, Elder Vornis called for a full assembly. Everyone gathered in the conference hall again, the tension even higher than before. The Elder stood at the center, his voice surprisingly strong. "I have examined the original texts, written by our founders 5,000 years ago. I have traced the evolution of our laws through the centuries. I bring you my findings." He activated a holographic display showing ancient Draconian writing. "The law forbidding alien touch was not part of our original code. It was added 1,000 years after our empire's founding, during the expansion wars. At that time, we encountered species who carried diseases we could not cure. Many royals died from biological contamination. Prince Kelvin nodded. Exactly. The law protects us. But context matters, Elder Vornis continued. The law was created as a medical safeguard, not a religious absolute. Furthermore, the life debt law that Princess Verith invoked is indeed older and, by our own legal traditions, takes precedence. Murmurs ran through the crowd. Emperor Vexus leaned forward. What is your recommendation, Elder? The human acted to preserve royal life, not harm it. By the spirit of our oldest laws, he should be honored, not punished. However, I understand this creates difficulty for our current society. The elder paused, his gaze sweeping the room. Therefore, I propose the human be given a trial of character. What kind of trial? Admiral Grant asked suspiciously. Elder Vornis gestured to Prince Kelvin. Let the prince, who opposes this resolution, set a challenge. If the human succeeds, he proves his worth and the life debt claim stands. If he fails, the old punishment applies. Jake felt his blood run cold. Prince Kelvin's smile was predatory. Very well, the prince said. Our royal transport vessel, the Crimson Wing, has a damaged quantum drive. Our best engineers have been unable to repair it without returning to the homeworld for parts, a journey of 3 months. If this human mechanic can repair it using only the resources available on this station, I will accept the life debt claim. Danny whispered urgently to Lisa, That's impossible. Quantum drives are incredibly complex. Jake's good, but he's never worked on draconian technology. Senator Cole stood. This is unfair. You're asking him to do something your own experts cannot. The trial must be difficult, or it means nothing, Prince Kelvin replied smoothly. Besides, if humans are truly as resourceful as they claim, he should welcome the challenge. All eyes turned to Jake. He stood slowly, his mind racing. He knew nothing about draconian quantum drives. The technology was far beyond human engineering. But he also knew he had no choice. I accept the challenge, Jake said, his voice steadier than he felt. You have 3 days, Prince Kelvin announced. The ship is in Dock 7. You may bring 1 assistant and use any materials on this station. Our engineers will observe but not help. As the assembly dispersed, Danny grabbed Jake's arm. Are you crazy? You can't fix a quantum drive. I have to try, Jake said. What else can I do? Princess Verith watched from across the room, her golden eyes meeting Jake's. She gave him a small nod, a gesture of faith that he hoped he could live up to. That night, Jake and Danny stood in Dock 7, staring up at the massive draconian ship. The Crimson Wing was beautiful but intimidating, its technology centuries ahead of anything Jake had worked on. Well, Danny said, pulling out his tools. I guess we better get started. Where do we even begin? Jake took a deep breath. With what we know best. Human ingenuity. Jake and Danny spent the first 12 hours just studying the quantum drive. It was massive, housed in a chamber that hummed with residual energy. Draconian engineers watched from a distance, their expressions skeptical. The damage was clear once Jake understood what he was looking at. A critical component, something the Draconians called a phase regulator, had cracked during combat. Without it, the quantum field couldn't stabilize properly. The ship could fly using conventional engines, but it couldn't jump to faster-than-light speeds. They need a replacement part manufactured to exact specifications, Danny said, reviewing the technical data the Draconians had reluctantly provided. The tolerances are insane. We're talking about precision down to the atomic level. Jake studied the broken piece, turning it over in his hands. It was made from a crystalline material that didn't exist in human space. We can't manufacture this. We don't have the right materials or equipment. So we're done? Danny asked. No, Jake said slowly. We just need to think differently. Draconians build everything to last forever, to be perfect. But humans, we improvise. We make do with what we have. He started pulling apart the station scrapyards, looking for anything that might work. Danny helped, both of them working through the night. The Draconian observers whispered among themselves, clearly confused by the humans' approach. Jake found old human ship parts, some dating back decades. He found crystalline fragments from a broken sensor array, magnetic coils from a dismantled engine, even optical fibers from outdated communication systems. "You're building something," one of the Draconian engineers said, unable to contain his curiosity. "But that is not how a phase regulator is constructed." "You're right," Jake admitted. "I can't build a Draconian phase regulator. But maybe I can build something that does the same job, just differently." He worked for 2 days straight, barely sleeping. Danny brought him food and coffee, helping with the delicate assembly work. Lisa Bennett checked in regularly, her worry evident. The device Jake created looked nothing like the original Draconian part. It was a hybrid of human and Draconian technology, held together with components that should never work together. The Draconian engineers looked at it with something between horror and fascination. "This is madness," one of them muttered. "The quantum frequencies will never align properly." "Maybe," Jake said, exhaustion making his hands shake. "But let's find out." He installed his makeshift regulator into the quantum drive. The fit was imperfect, requiring additional modifications to the mounting system. Every Draconian in the room was certain it would fail, possibly catastrophically. Jake connected the final power coupling and stepped back. "Danny, you might want to stand behind the blast shield." "If you're staying, I'm staying," Danny said firmly. Jake initiated the startup sequence. The quantum drive hummed to life, and immediately alarms started blaring. The energy readings were unstable, fluctuating wildly. The Draconian engineers backed away, expecting an explosion. But Jake had anticipated the instability. He had built in human-designed dampeners, crude but effective. He adjusted the settings manually, watching the readings carefully. Slowly, the fluctuations began to smooth out. The quantum drive stabilized. The readings weren't perfect. They showed inefficiencies that would make any Draconian engineer uncomfortable. But the drive was working. The ship could jump to faster-than-light speeds again. The room was silent except for the steady hum of the repaired drive. One of the Draconian engineers approached slowly, scanning the readings. "This should not work. By every principle of our engineering, this is impossible." "Welcome to human engineering," Danny said with a tired grin. "We specialize in impossible." Word spread quickly. By the time Jake and Danny emerged from the ship, exhausted and covered in grease, a crowd had gathered. Princess Verith was there, looking much stronger now, standing beside her father. Prince Kelvin's face was unreadable. Emperor Vexus approached the ship's lead engineer. "Is it functional?" "Yes, Your Majesty," the engineer confirmed, still sounding bewildered. "It will require more frequent maintenance than our original design, and it operates on principles I do not fully understand, but it works." The Emperor turned to Jake. "You have succeeded where our own engineers could not. You have proven your worth and your character." Prince Kelvin stepped forward. Even in defeat, he maintained his dignity. "I challenged you expecting failure. Instead, you have shown me something valuable. Our way is not the only way. I acknowledge the life debt claim." Elder Vornis smiled, his ancient face creasing with satisfaction. "Then it is settled. Jake Morrison, you are pardoned of all charges. More than that, you are now under the protection of the royal house, with all the honors that entails." Princess Verith approached Jake, moving with the grace that her recovering health allowed. "You saved my life twice now. Once with your instinct, once with your skill. My people owe you a debt we can never fully repay." "I was just doing what needed to be done," Jake said honestly. "Exactly," Princess Verith said. "And that is why I want to propose something to both our peoples." She turned to address everyone gathered. "For too long, Draconians have isolated ourselves. We have believed our way was the only correct way. But this human has shown us that different approaches have value. I propose a formal cultural and technological exchange between our species." Ambassador Chen, who had arrived during the final day of Jake's work, stepped forward eagerly. "The human coalition would welcome such an exchange, Your Highness." Emperor Vexus considered his daughter's words carefully. Finally, he nodded. Very well. Let this incident mark a new beginning between our peoples. Let the laws that divide us be examined and, where appropriate, reformed. The next weeks were busy with negotiations and celebrations. Jake was offered a position as liaison engineer between humans and Draconians. He accepted but insisted on keeping his mechanic job part-time. Some things, he said, you don't give up. Danny stood with Jake, watching as the first joint human-Draconian engineering team assembled to work on collaborative projects. You know, Danny said, when you caught that princess, I thought your life was over. Turns out it was just beginning. Jake smiled, watching as Princess Verith explained Draconian technology to fascinated human engineers while Draconian students listened intently to human improvisation techniques. The touch that should have caused war had instead built a bridge between two civilizations. Sometimes, he reflected, the smallest acts of kindness created the biggest changes. He was still just a mechanic, but now he was a mechanic who had changed the galaxy.